Welcome to Bloodbath and Beyond. Today we review Wrong Turn 5 Bloodlines. The inbred hillbillies are back.
Written and directed by Declan O'Brien, starring Doug Bradley, Camilla Arfwedson, Simon Ginty, and Roxanne McKee. This movie's about a group of college kids on their way to the Mountain Man Festival in West Virginia. Unfortunately, they get into a car accident and they're put in jail. And also in jail is our inbred hillbilly's dad, and they'll do anything to get him out, including killing all of these kids. Being that this is part of a popular franchise, we are going to talk spoilers, and we'll talk about some of the kills, and I think it's probably for the best that we just cover most of the stuff. So what do we like?
I liked the addition of Doug Bradley. It's interesting because he's taking on a role of a character that we are familiar with from the second movie as the father figure. But I liked his character because he was just an instigator.
He's just stuck in a cell and he's constantly trying to barter with people, trying to get out of this cell.
Well, would you at least move me to another cell? This drunk stinks.
And even when he's not doing that, he's just threatening the sheriff or people around him.
It started. They're coming for me. And you're dead.
But my 3 sons are gonna kill you all by the end of the night, so you better let me out. Well, most of them don't listen to him. And the one that did is a fucking idiot.
Somebody help me!
Some of the kills were pretty solid, even if it wasn't a kill. For example, that one guy getting his legs bashed in by the brothers, that looked super painful.
Especially because they threw him out into the road and then ran him over afterwards. Plus, I did the fake out kill with Billy being buried in the ground. Where you're oh, he's gonna get it. And they drive past him with the lawnmower and you're oh, I didn't see that coming. But then they just killed him right away. But it was funny that Three Finger did a U-turn to get him. I'm sure we'll talk about the story and plot points later on in this review, but there is one thing I did like about this story. It's really dumb, but the reasoning that the deputies were distracted when the sheriff was calling them in for help. You know, normally the deputies are just dead, and in this case, they were busy doing other things.
By doing other things, he means fucking the hottest babe for backstage tickets to this random concert that they kept talking about that we never saw.
The festival has grown over the years to where it now rivals Coachella and Lollapalooza.
And basically the babes and nudity are where we're gonna end, and we're gonna move on to the dislikes. This movie was likely the worst in the franchise so far. It's not even that it was boring, it was just so paper thin. Nothing really mattered. You don't care about the characters, and you don't care about the brothers. But I think most importantly, I hated the way that this movie looked.
Here we are on Main Street in the town of Fair Lake, West Virginia.
The whole thing is clearly shot on a soundstage. They built out this very small town that's maybe 7 stores. And so if people are walking through the streets, you can see them walk by the same stores. It's lit like it's in a studio. And even when they're oh, we're gonna go into the forest, it's they have to walk down this road. You can see a trailer blocking off where one road would end, just because they didn't have anything in the background. And you see them walk directly off of a stage into a dirt road. It was absolutely shit.
And what I was talking about earlier with the story and the plot, it was almost like they were coming up for excuses for the characters to not be safe. We have the reasoning for the deputies being distracted that led to nowhere. We had them radio in to Danny Rand, of all people. And that whole scene happened for about 5-10 minutes, and again, it led to nowhere. It just felt as though this story had no substance to it. It really just fell flat with its character development and its story arc, especially with the inbred hillbillies. We are seeing them for the 5th time right now. It feels as though we've had our 5th reboot in the franchise because they all have different backstories. They didn't even feel like cannibals. Cruz ate more human than the hillbillies did.
That's very true. Yeah, I think this dad was supposed to be the same dad that we saw in Wrong Turn 2, but if that's the case, then Declan O'Brien, the writer and director of this film, who also wrote the fourth one that reestablished the origin story of them growing up in an asylum. Like, he's basically like, oh wait, never mind, that origin doesn't exist. I did remember that there was a Wrong Turn 2. So now we'll introduce the dad again, but he's younger because this is slightly before Wrong Turn 2. And while talking about the hillbillies, this is the worst look so far because they're all wearing goddamn masks. I'm sure that it's still prosthetic pieces on their faces, but they are poorly applied and they look terrible. And you can even see them talking and their mouth underneath the mask is moving. It looks just god awful. And don't get me started on the One Eye and Sawtooth wearing fat suits. They look like scarecrows stuffed with newspaper.
Give me a hand, will you? No, you fucking idiot.
I can't imagine being in front of a camera with a whole crew of people that I would imagine producers that have money in this, sitting there like, this looks great. Perfect job. And then you take those phony ass fake looking people and you throw them onto a set that looks like a damn TV show. It's like, what are you guys thinking? There were better ways to hide the imperfections that they could have utilized. The lighting could have been not like stadium lighting, because that's what it felt like. If they did a different color grading, you could have hid some of the imperfections of the set. Like, there are so many little things they could have done to increase the production value that would have cost them next to nothing, and it's like they didn't even give a shit.
Are you stoned or you just think I'm stupid?
And I felt like the characters could have easily beaten the hillbillies at any moment if they were competent enough and stuck with their plans.
They want us to split up. It makes it easier for them to kill us that way, so we should stick together. Here until dawn. Now get to your stations.
They split up a lot, and for pointless reasons as well. Literally, if they would have just held their ground like they planned on doing it and just holding up with the shotguns, the second one of those hillbillies try to come in, they're gonna get blown away.
I know that it sounds like, yeah, we're nitpicking like character decisions, and you're allowed to. Fuck it. We get that people are gonna make stupid mistakes, but in this one, it was just constant mistakes to the point where you couldn't get on board with anything. Everything just seemed lazy.
Even to the point where Cruz leaves to go bring her boyfriend Billy food at the police station, which I don't think is actually a real thing you can do if someone's arrested. But minutes later, Julian just decides to go too, just to give him a reason to get there before Cruz, because they killed Cruz's character off.
I told you, it's my boys. They're here to get me.
Even the lore behind this Mountain Man festival was really, really bad, because it makes this film feel as though the Hillbilly Brothers are the reasoning for this festival.
The entire town, every inhabitant disappeared. The hillbillies hauled all the bodies up to the woods, created a huge bonfire, and then they cooked the fair residents of Fair Lake.
Everyone's walking around wearing masks that look like them, and they don't even use the fake outs of potentially, oh, this is just a person in a costume, and then it ends up being a hillbilly and that hillbilly kills them. We get it like once as like a setup at the very beginning of the movie, and that's it. There was so much wasted potential that it's frustrating.
Especially when they're setting up this big concert and they're setting up that festival and they don't even go to the concert. And the only reason the concert exists is so they can have this big empty stage to themselves. There's literally not one person in this town that's not one of like the 8 core people. You're telling me there was 15,000 people running these streets earlier and now every single one of them is gone. Everything is a cop-out. It's just like, well, we needed a reason to have empty streets because we can't afford extras or something. So let's just make a concert and they can all go there and then we can just work in this little set and do whatever we want. Now it's time for our final thoughts and ratings. I think this is the worst in the franchise. I didn't like any of our characters. I didn't like the story. While the setup of a festival would have been cool, they didn't use it. Unfortunately, we spent all of our time in this very small like county jail and it just wasn't interesting. I did like Doug Bradley, but he himself could not have saved this film. There's even like some pretty solid practical effects and some nudity like right off the bat, and it just, everything else was just so bad that you forget about all of the good stuff. The way this movie looks is just horrendous. There's so many things that they could have done to fix this, and even the kills had nothing to do with the character traits of our college kids. Like, why were we randomly on a soccer field just because they had an idea for a kill and these guys somehow ended up at a soccer field. There could have been even the smallest backstory about how one person liked to play soccer. They could have had one line and it would have been like, oh, it's a throwback to what they were mentioning earlier, but they didn't even try. I think this is just an awful movie, and that's even before I talk about our hillbillies. Like, our hillbillies just look terrible, they don't act great, and I just didn't like them. So why am I watching this movie? So I'm gonna give this 0.5 flaming mows out of 5.
What do you call it?
Well, it's called a flaming
Mo. It's called the Flaming Mo.
After the 5th film in the franchise, I've finally come to terms that our backwood hillbillies are no longer really backwood hillbillies, as we've had 2 films in a row not take place in a forest. Their strengths are hunting down people who have taken a wrong turn when going somewhere. And that is not the case in this film. Everyone is at the destination they're supposed to be. The hillbillies are absolutely ridiculous, to the point that when they're walking around in their fat suits, all I could hear is the duck song in my head as they waddle away.
And he waddled away, waddle, waddle, till the very next day.
All of this reasoning for what was going on, it just was paper thin. It didn't make any sense. There was no strong reasoning behind anyone's decisions, story or character. And the fact that our hillbillies can walk around this abandoned town while a music festival is going on and there's no interactions happening, there's no like actual threat going on, is really bad, because you want to feel that tension. You like the idea of where are the hillbillies going to be, when are they going to strike, because they're specialists in stalking and trapping humans to eat. They did not stalk, they did not trap, and they did not eat humans. This is the worst in the franchise. So with that being said, I'm gonna give this film 0.5 role reversals out of 5.
As always, thank you for watching. Like this video and comment below with your thoughts on the film if you've seen it. If you haven't and you do want to check it out, links are in the description. And if this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe to the channel, stay up to date with everything Bloodbath and beyond.